David Hooper, Red Podcast here, and I am going to do a couple of things that I tell podcasters never to do. And the first is tell you about how vulnerable I'm going to be. I think when you tell people that you're vulnerable or tell people that you're transparent, a lot of times that's a marketing ploy. You're trying to act like you're more relatable, or you want them to feel sorry for you so they'll pay more attention to you. Or maybe sometimes when you tell people that, maybe you just want them to say, no, it's okay. It's okay. You don't need to feel bad about that. Kind of a psychological trick. The other thing I tell people not to do, I don't think you should ever use your podcast for therapy. I believe that if your listener is not getting a copay, he's not being paid by your insurance, your listener shouldn't have to be the brunt of whatever it is that you're going through. So I'm trying not to do that, but this is in some ways a little bit therapeutic. I'm working something out that happened to me today, and I'm going to share it with you because I think it's a big lesson for entrepreneurs, experts, authors, speakers, people who are trying to spread a message. And that is that I'm pretty sure I had a panic attack on stage today in front of a live audience. It was a big conference. And when I say that, I'm talking, 10,000 people. Now, they weren't all watching me. I had maybe a couple hundred people watching me, maybe. But still, a big event that I was very excited about. I had a great experience working with the organizers of this event. They were excited about the information I had to share. This is an event that I've had a relationship with for quite some time now. And they said, hey, why don't you come speak? I said, great. That's a great opportunity. Thank you very much for that. I would love to. So I got my slides in about a month ago. Everything is great. I've got a month to think about this presentation. I'm thinking about it. It was a new presentation, but not really. It was familiar material I'd rearranged just for this event. And I had that month, and I used it pretty well, I think. I was going through the slides. I was working that presentation. I was making it fit tighter and tighter and tighter with each run of the presentation. And there were a couple of sections. I went through them this morning before I stepped on stage. I went through one of them about 4 times. I had been through this thing backwards, forwards, upwards, downwards, sideways. I've been through it in a number of ways and in a lot of ways. It was changing, so I wasn't completely familiar with the new version of it, but I was fairly familiar, fairly confident. There was a lot of pressure on me, though, a lot. And one of those ways that I felt the pressure was that I had to be on and off within a certain amount of time. I have a tendency to go long. That's something that I struggle with. So I was really working to tighten this presentation up. There's a big audio and video component. I think that's part of what I ran into when I gave this presentation. Let me tell you about the venue. This was interesting. Big screens behind me. And like I said, a big event. And there was a lot going on at any given time with all these people there, including a lot of noise. A lot of noise. In fact, the venue was so noisy because of what was going on around it that the people in the audience actually had to wear headphones to be able to hear me. And the only way I can describe the connection you feel when something like that is happening, because again, it's loud, I'm not able to hear myself, they're not able to hear me, is it's almost like your foot being asleep and you're trying to drive and you kind of feel the gas and know what that motion feels like, and you feel the brake and you know that's going to slow you down. But something's a little bit off. You're not feeling connected to the road, connected to your car. And that's what it was like when I was up on stage. So I got up there with my time limit of about 30 minutes. And maybe a couple minutes in, man, my voice gave out. My voice gave out. My mouth was dry. It was like a desert. And I'm not a guy that happens to. That does not happen to me. Or I should say, it hadn't happened to me until today, because it did. And it was scary because I'm looking down on that clock. I've got maybe 25 minutes to go. And My mouth was so dry that my lips were sticking to my gums, and I can't pronounce words without lips. So I asked for some water. That was a big mistake, and another lesson to always take water on stage. But again, this stuff had never happened to me. I had never had dry voice. And yeah, make note, take the water even if you think you don't need it. I was drinking water beforehand. I was ready to go and feeling good. I didn't know what I was going to do. And just to kind of describe what happened when I'm up there is I'm giving the presentation. Intro is okay. I'm going into it. There are a couple changes, but I'm going to get through them. I'm confident in that. I know if I can get to a certain part, I'm confident in that part. But I get past that first couple of minutes, and I thought I was dying, man. I thought I was dying. I mean, I don't know what to do when you're in that situation. You can acknowledge it. I was thinking when I was talking with my lips stuck to my gums, the people probably knew what was happening. I had sweat dripping down my face. I could feel it in my back. I was wondering if you could see it through my shirt. That was the moment. And what are you going to do when people see you up there dying? Or do they? That's what I was wondering. It's like, well, maybe they don't know how I normally am on stage. Or maybe they don't know how smooth I am or comfortable with the crowd. But man, it was not me up there. By the same token, it was me. I mean, that was me. And I think that was a little bit scary because when this thing happened, man, it's like, uh-oh, maybe you don't have this together like you think you do. And maybe you're not ready for this next step. And maybe you should have rehearsed more. And you go through 1,000 different scenarios. All the time, everybody looking at you and that sweat dripping down. And you're looking at that clock that they set you up with right in front of the stage so you know how long you've got to talk. And you're thinking, man, I got another 25 minutes. I don't know what I'm going to do here. So that was it. Got my drink of water, tried to get it together, and I was back to it. But it was still like I was watching myself from above the stage. It's like you're out of your head, not in your body. And you hear people, they talk about that when they're going through some kind of trauma, like you get mugged or something. It's like, yeah, I wasn't in my body anymore. I was there, but it wasn't really me taking that beating. My body was there, but I was somewhere else. And the problem with that when it comes to speaking is you really need to be present. You need to be present with that audience, feeling them, presenting your message. I wasn't able to do it on that level. And then with the loudness and everything, it was like, it's like you saw people there, but even if somebody in the audience moved, you couldn't hear them move. Like if they moved a chair or something or coughed, you'd see them put their hand up to their mouth and like, I think that guy's coughing. And so that was kind of a disconnect. So that's really weird. And it's not totally weird to me to be completely disconnected from the audience because with this podcast, for example, I'm talking into a microphone. I'm in my studio. Nobody is around, but I'm visualizing you listening to it. That experience is in my brain right now. But, I wasn't able to focus like that. And yeah, man, it's like, yeah, just press on. And unfortunately, the water did help. I think maybe that was the biggest lesson. Always bring water up on stage. But yeah, never had this issue, and I've done stand-up comedy and I've done dozens of speeches and podcasts and audiobooks and voiceover. And I don't have vocal issues like I had today. Can I still say that? I don't normally have vocal issues like I had today. Sometimes I have vocal issues like I had today, and they happened today. And I started sweating, and I'm looking out, and my mouth is not moving. And it wasn't like I didn't know the presentation. It wasn't like I'm not comfortable in front of an audience or nervous or not confident in my ability to speak on this. Didn't feel like I was an expert. Wasn't anything like that. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I thought I'd press on. But man, once you lose that momentum, I think this is a weird analogy, but imagine getting married and you've got this great relationship with your spouse and you're faithful to her. She's faithful to you. until somebody isn't. How do you get that back? Is that even possible? I don't know. Hadn't had that happen to me. Knock on wood. But I think of it like that, right? Is that you've got this thing and it's going and it's strong and everything is working out and you've worked hard for it. And you've been looking forward to it. And there's a lot on the line and you're going to make it happen until it doesn't work. How do you get back on track? Regain that with an audience watching you. That was what was going through my mind. I thought I was going to pass out. I talked about this on the podcast before, that about a year ago, I was at an event. I was working so hard. At the end, I was ready to come home, got on the plane. I was the last plane out. There were weather delays. We pulled back from the gate. I'm thrilled that I'm the last plane out that night until I wasn't. Captain came on. We're just going to sit here on the tarmac and let this storm blow over. Don't know how long it's going to be, so I'm going to turn the lights back on. Same thing happened to me that was on stage. Cold sweat. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like I need to go to the bathroom. Get up, go to the bathroom. I'm at the rear end of the plane. I just black out, man. Drop to my knees, can't see anything. Vision comes back to me. I'm looking up, still on my knees. I see the door to the lavatory, crawl in the lavatory, and I hear this, sir, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Got some water, got my bearings back, made it back to my seat. It's one of those things I think, like happened today, when I was walking back to that lavatory. You know, you've got close quarters in a plane. You're like, man, can everybody see me kind of stumbling around here? Is everybody looking at me like something's wrong? I thought about that today too. You know, when you're giving a presentation, a lot of times people don't know that you mess up. They just figure it's part of the presentation. They don't know what you planned. And I was like, you know, do these guys know I'm messing up? I mean, my lips are sticking to my gums, man. Do they know that I don't normally speak like this? Can they even hear me because the room is so loud, and does it even matter? Maybe they think I sweat a lot. I don't know. But that was the feeling, and it was a bad one. But I made it through, felt a little bit better later on in the presentation, and walked off stage and immediately apologized to the staff. I felt like I'd let people down. I don't know that I could have prepared for this. I mean, I knew what I was getting into. And I'd been to this venue before, seen presentations at this conference before. But I think until you're up there, you just don't know what you're going to do. I had a friend of mine in the audience, and I talked to him afterwards. I was like, dude, you know, not a good presentation from me. And he said this. He said, I was watching you up there trying to think, what would I do in this situation? And this is a guy who does tons of dates, dozens of dates per year. He's had a lot of opportunity to be on stage, and he didn't know what he would do because he had never been in this situation. I mean, you can think you would know what you would be able to do, and he probably would be able to handle it better than I did because he does this dozens of times a year. I just do a few every year. But until you get up there, who knows what you would do? Who knows? The reason I'm sharing this with you is because when people hear me on a podcast, hear me on the radio, it's edited. You're not hearing the real me, the real David Hooper, raw, front to back, non-edited version. You're hearing something that in some cases has been highly manipulated. If there's a problem, like I say something that I shouldn't, or say something that I later regret, I'm going to remove that. And you can't do that on stage. Once it's out there, it is out there. So lesson learned. Time to go back to the woodshed. I think there's an opportunity for us every time this happens. I think we can learn from it. We can try to go bigger, or we can bow down to it, start playing small. And I think that's something to ask you as an entrepreneur, somebody who's trying to get a message out there. I think you do have to ask yourself, you know, maybe this just isn't your thing. This isn't your way of getting your message out. Some people don't like video. Maybe you're nervous on the YouTube videos that you make. Well, maybe it's not your thing. Or are you going to work through that to make it your thing? And I'm thinking about that with speaking today. Maybe the live speaking, not my thing. even though I've done it dozens of times over the years. Or maybe something this polished isn't my thing. Maybe I'm better off the cuff. Maybe I'm better for a small presentation. Maybe I'm better emceeing, asking questions, being on a panel. There are a lot of ways to cut this. So I want you to think about that as you run into these difficult times. I'm going to leave you with a quote. This is about my friend Rick Roberts. And he said this. He said, if it doesn't work out, you'll have a better story than if it did. So looking at this on the positive, I could come up here and say, yeah, hey, I gave a speech. Yeah, it was great. Walked off stage, got a big check. A lot of people walked up to me, gave me their credit card numbers, told me to bill them forever because they wanted to buy whatever it was I was selling. That did not happen. Maybe that'd be a good story. But perhaps the better story, the more valuable one is, sometimes things don't work out. So what do you do? What do you do? You got that decision. You're going to go small, walk away from it, give it up entirely, change it, dive right into it. Not making judgment here. You choose it. What I am going to do, because I think there's something here. I think there's something to this speech. I'm going to start going within, looking at myself, working out this speech, working the kinks out, making it more polished than it was. And I am going to do it again. So if you're looking for someone to speak at your event, reach out to me. Maybe you'll get a great speech. If not, maybe I'll get up on your stage, have a panic attack. Then you've got a great story. Thank you for listening to Red Podcast. For more from me, here's how to subscribe. I've got several podcasts. This is one of them. This one's more about the mindset of going out there, spreading your message, asking people for money, getting attention from people, and building a connection with them. If you want more specific marketing information, I've got a podcast on podcasting called Build a Big Podcast. All of these podcasts that I've got, much more information. It is available on a subscription page. If you want to make sure that you never miss an episode, here it is, bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Again, that's bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Everything that I do is there and available to you. The podcast available for free. So thank you for listening to Red Podcast, and I will see you on the next episode.